Subterfuge is a multiplayer game of strategy and diplomacy that plays out in real time over the course of about a week. Players check in a few times per day on their mobile devices to issue or modify orders and to engage their friends in diplomacy and subterfuge. This video will explain how combat works and the role that specialists play in it. To engage in combat effectively, you must either outnumber your enemy or outsmart them. Outnumbering your enemy simply means having a lot more drillers. Drillers are the basic military unit in Subterfuge. They are machines used for both mining and combat. Another type of military unit is the specialist. Players hire specialists over the course of the game, and they can affect how combat unfolds. With clever use of specialists, you can outsmart an opponent and win despite being outnumbered. Combat occurs when a sub owned by one player arrives at an outpost owned by another player. Combat also occurs when two subs owned by different players cross paths while traveling between the same two outposts. When combat occurs, it is resolved in 4 phases. First, the specialist phase, then the shield phase, then the driller phase, and finally the capture phase. At the end of combat, the player who still has some drillers left is the winner. Let's look at an example. Here, I'm attacking an outpost with a sub carrying 25 drillers and a lieutenant. When my sub reaches the enemy outpost, combat will take place. First, in the specialist phase, the abilities of participating specialists are applied. While my lieutenant should destroy 5 drillers, the enemy's assassin should kill my lieutenant. So which happens first? This is determined by the combat priority of each specialist, which you can see in the specialist's info view. The specialist with a lower combat priority will go first. The enemy assassin has a combat priority of 4, while my lieutenant has a combat priority of 6. So the assassin goes first and kills my lieutenant. Since my lieutenant is now dead, he doesn't get to apply his ability, and we move on to the shield phase. The enemy outpost has a shield charge of 2, which we subtract from my driller count. I started with 25 drillers, and now I have 23 left. Next is the driller phase. My 23 drillers win against the enemy's 20, and subtracting the enemy driller count from my own leaves me with 3 drillers and a new outpost under my control. Finally, the capture phase. Since I won, and the enemy assassin is still alive, it is now my prisoner and will stay at this outpost until it is freed. Understanding how combat works and being able to figure out who will win is an essential skill in Subterfuge. But trying to do it in your head would be both annoying and error-prone, so we built several mechanisms into the game that do this for you. The most basic is a simple win-loss indicator. A sub headed toward combat that it is expected to lose will have a flashing red warning light on it. Another win-loss indicator is the crosshair displayed around the sub's destination. Green crosshair implies the sub will win, red implies it will lose. A third way in which the game helps you determine the outcome of combat is the simulated future. Tap the clock icon in the lower left corner and turn the time dial to scrub into the future. With this method, you will not only see who is expected to win, but also how many drillers the winner will have left and which specialists will remain. But by far the most detailed combat prediction mechanism is the combat preview. Tap any sub headed for combat, and then tap the combat preview button in its info panel. You can now see a step-by-step log of how its next combat will unfold. But all these future prediction mechanisms have limitations, and you should always keep these limitations in mind. First, they do not take into account anything that is outside your visibility range. Second, there is no way to account for orders that other players haven't yet issued. In either case, it may at first seem like you will win the combat, but a few hours later, you may discover that you will actually lose. With all this talk about combat, it's important to emphasize that military tactics are only one aspect of winning a war, and that diplomacy plays just as big a part, if not bigger. You may be twice as powerful as I am, but if I have a good ally and you don't, your chances of winning a war against me are slim. So talk to your neighbors, get a sense of the politics in your region of the world, and don't get caught by surprise. That's it for this video. If you would like to participate in our private alpha, sign up for our mailing list at subterfuge-game.com.